Hello. If you're watching this is the Software Sustainability Institute Fellowship Program 2019 launch webinar. We are 2 minutes to the hour and just going to give you some time to join, and we're going to start at 2. Hello, Danny.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Hello.
Where's our baby crying nearby?
Oh, that's mine. Unfortunately, I apologize.
Can you mute yourself when you're
Yep.
not speaking then? Thank you. So, thank you, everyone, if you're watching this. This is the Software Sustainability Institute Fellowship Program 2019 launch webinar. So we're going to be talking about the program that the Software Institute has. My name is Raniere Silva. Today, I'm your host, and I'm going to receive questions on the YouTube chat. So some practicalities for today. If you have any kind of problems, please use the YouTube chat, and Mario probably is going to be assisting you with any technical questions. We're going to be recording this webinar, and any questions related with the program that you type in the chat might be, that end up being response is going to be recording as well. We have a Twitter account that's at SoftwareSaver that you can use to contact us as well. So what we aim to cover on this webinar is to introduce the Software Sustainability Institute to you, talk about the fellowship program. We have 5 fellows with us, so they're going to have 10 minutes to speak about their experience. And at the very end, we're going to have time for questions. And please ask them anytime on the chat. So the agenda for today is that I'm going to start. I already introduced. So as I say, my name is Raniere Silva. I'm the community officer for the Software Sustainability Institute. I help running the fellowship program, and I'm based in Manchester. Soon I'm going to start talking about the Software Sustainability Institute, and around 10 past the hour, I'm going to talk about the fellowship program. 20 minutes past the hour until 10 minutes past 3 p.m. We're going to have time for fellows to present their experience. And at the very end, we're going to have times for questions. So what's the Software Sustainability Institute? We are a national facility based in 4 locations: Southampton, Manchester, Edinburgh, and Oxford, that advocate for better softwares because it enables better research. So we try to push all the boundaries for software being used on the research cycle. And you have a lot of expertise to help people in our stage of careers. We have lots of programs and events, and you help with design policies in the UK. So we have 5 teams. So they are show up on this slide. I'm going to talk about each one of the 5 shortly. So we have a software team that's mostly of research software engineering. We use them to help people, mainly research, when they need to get some advice or develop some piece of software that they need to use, and their home station might not have someone to assist them on that task. We have a training team, so it's responsible to deliver some software skill training. We partner with some institutions, and one of them is the carpenters. And they also work with the fellows close by when they're looking to provide some training. We have a community team that's responsible mostly for the fellowship program, but also to some events like collaborations workshop that I'm going to talk about later. We have a policy team, so it's talk with the research councils and other founders and institutions about how it's important to support software, and is very close related with the research software engineering community movement. And the last of the 5 things is outreaching. So we try to use different platforms to engage and contact new people. So what activities those 5 things has been doing in the last years? So the software team is involved with more than 70 projects, and we did some evaluations of software for people. The training team is responsible for more than 100 carpentries workshop, which reached more than 2K learners and write some guides. On the community team, we have now more than 100 fellows, and in the last years, we organized more than 25 workshops. In terms of policy, we have many research software engineers engaged. In the last 3 years, we had a yearly conference that's probably going to have another one this year with dates to be defined. We have worked with some signatures and highlighting issues. And in terms of outreaching, we have blogs or articles on the website, right from contributors. There are more than 170 at the moment. And our website has around 20K unique visitors per month, and our Twitter account has more than 5K followers. So these are us. And what we talk about when we say that software is important for researchers, very long time ago in 2014, we organized some surveys to try to get some numbers about that. And what we find out is that lots of people use research software. Almost 90% of the research say they use some sort of research software, and around 80% of the repliers were saying that they would not be able to do that if they didn't have access to the software. So it's a very big number of researchers that rely on software. So we are here to help them continue doing their work. So why are you looking for fellows? Fellows is a natural way for us to support ambassadors of better software practice that are working on their own communities. So we see this as a win-win for them and for us. It's also helped us to support improving and what are the challenges, because each one of the disciplines is going to use a different software and have different challenge to bypass. In terms of fellows as well, we're trying to work together to design training policies in community and engagement. So we're looking for people in all levels of career. So we're looking for people that are junior, like PhD students, or very early research software engineering. Looking for earlier careers, some like research assistants, lecturers, and research software engineering. We're also looking for mid or recognized researchers and very established and senior, like professors and directors. So to give you an idea of numbers in the last few years, we try to have a very diverse group of people. So the first graph on your left show about the gender. of our fellows. And on the right, you can see the career stage of the fellows. Most of the people are on the earlier and mid-career stage, but that's because it's a very broad definition. So it's most people outside, it's a self-evaluation, so they say they are middle or earlier career, but we also have a good number of juniors and late. So what we're looking for, we're looking for people that are supported by all the 7 research councils in the UK, but also other funders in the EU or welcome. And what people need to have, they need to have some specific interest in software. So they can be users or developers on their own research, and optional they can be involved in technology standards or promote the use of software or blog about software they are using. We're looking for champions to improve software practice in their domains, and all domains are interesting for us. As I mentioned before, we're interesting from people coming from all the 7 research councils in the UK. We're looking for effective research collaborators, so people that are good working together with other researchers and also promoting their work to a very wide audience with blogs, tweeting, Instagramming, and any other kind of social media. Looking for contributing to your research communities with paper presentations, software standards. We'd like you to be engaged on your own research network, but also going out of your niche. And in terms of engagements, most fellows say their work with us is around 9 days of their year. So it's always a win-win activity for everyone. What we expected for junior career stages, we expect then to have time to contributing, to get engaged with other research institutions they work close by, to attend or organize events. If traveling is something necessary, it's available with the funding. We're looking for them to share their experience and science. We're also looking for them to use the platform as a way for them to progress their career. And you're hoping that they align with us to promote the Institute missions. And we're going to talk later about a few events that are required as part of the fellowship. So for earlier and mid-career researchers, we're expecting from juniors, plus we're looking for them to help seed and nurture a community of practice. We're looking then to organize workshops more than just attending workshops that other people are organizing. Looking then to contribute to policies in the UK, will help then to help with reviews for other programs like the open calls, when we use our research software engineering team to help people in other institutions to develop their own software. And we might invite you, if you are a fellow, to give a talk on our behalf. And additionally, you can undertake the carpentry's instructor training. And for senior career stages, we expect, like for the early and middles, everything on the previous career stage. But also we're looking for you to organize and chair networking events related with better software, looking for you to promote the institute with our mission and on the very high level of research in the UK. We possibly going to invite you to be on adverse board meetings, and we also would like to see you as a core review from outputs from middle career fellows. So this is our expectations for our fellows, and we are open to suggestions and ideas that fellows have. What our promise to the fellows? We promise to listen any ideas that they have. We promise to be responsive then we're going to deal with fellows as one of our teams mates at the Institute. We're going to have your backs. We promise you to support your work and ideas as a fellow. The fellows, they can talk about how we support them later today. I'm going to be fair and flexible where possible with your funding requests. And we're going to promise help you develop your own community development skills. So what benefits fellows have? The first one is the £3,000 for our event funds that can be used to organize events or as a travel support to attend other events. But there is other non-financial benefits like raise your profile, organize or attend events, present your work to a wide audience, have your opinion heard by other people. There is lots of fellows that decide to be engaged on training. So they get a lot of teaching experience. There is informal publishing opportunities with articles. We're going to join a very dynamic network of fellows that keep engaged after the inaugural year. We're going to have a much more higher visibility with the institutions. We're probably going to be one of the leaders in the research software for your area, and you're going to be part of a platform to influence the research software policy in the UK and worldwide. So what the requirements are to be a fellow if we receive the offer to be a fellow. First one is to agree to terms and conditions. We can have a look on the previous one. There's a link on the end of these slides that's going to be shared later. You need to write blog posts for each support event from us. I'm going to talk that in a second. You need to attend the Fellows Program inaugural meeting. It's a day meeting in person. You have to attend 2 or 3 community developer skills events. Those are going to be online, and it's going to be only a couple of hours each event. You need to attend Collaborations Workshop 2019 and 2020. Officially, you can attend our fellows meeting. It's probably going to be a dinner with some activities before. And you can take part in a survey on your participations of your fellowship program. So these are the requirements. About the blog posts, as I said before, if you have support from us in an event, you need to write a blog post. And the blog post is not just on a report, but is one way to have your whole messages shared with wide communities, which is not just fellows and staff, but also with the visitors from the website. And it's a very nice way to remember what you accomplished during the year. So not only blog posts from events are welcome, but anything that you want to write and share on the website related with software is more than welcome. And lots of people think it's a very enjoyable way to share these skills they are learning. So what's the timeline for the fellowship? We're going to close applications on Sunday, February 3rd at midnight. We're going to send invitations for the shortlisting meeting on Monday, 25th of February. With the invitation, you're also going to receive invitations for Collaborations Workshop 2019. And any shortlist candidate, it gets a free ticket for Collaborations Workshop. On Wednesday, 6th of March, we're going to have our online selection day. It's from 10:30 a.m. until 4 p.m. We're going to send offers of the fellowship to all the successful candidates on Friday, 22 of March. Between 1st and 3rd of April, we're going to have Collaborations Workshop 2019, which, as I said before, shortlist candidates are invited to attend for free. And on Friday, the 12th of April, we're going to officially announce the 2019 fellows on the website. So applications are on this address, bit.ly SSI -fellows 2019 -apply. So a few more things about the applications before we move to the experience of our fellows. So there is lots of activities that fellows had get involved with. These are some that you can search on the website, but they goes from a few meetings and workshops, like the benchmark workshop that Sarah organized that was related with make software faster, to daily meetings with Arch, joining your local group, and co-organized events or satellite events like Krishna organized for containers for HPC. That was next to another workshop that the Institute organized. So it's a very big list, and a nice way to see what people accomplish is looking for the blog posts they wrote on our website. A few other activities. Some fellows of ours are research software engineers like Mike Croucher, James Harrington, Robert Haynes, and Alice Brett. And it's a big movement now in the UK. So we're very proud of support them and have fellows that are working with them. And we are also partner of the Carpentries that organize some training activities worldwide. So fellows like James Baker, Alexander Kovanov, Steve Harris, and Heather Ford had working with different versions of the carpenter-based material for their own domains, which is something that we can include on your fellowship as part of the training activities. As I mentioned, there is a fellow inaugural meeting that you should attend as a fellow. So it's expected to be in May 2019. It has an introduction of the Institute and themes that we work on with lots of operations. It's a way for network with other fellows. And if you want to have some idea of what's happening, there is a blog post on bit.ly SSI -fellows 2018 -inaugural with a blog post that we wrote. I mentioned collaborations workshop. So in 2018, we had these 3 days of activities at the School of Mathematics in Cardiff University that I imagine Vincent is going to talk more about later because he's our local host. It was focused on cultural change and productivity. We had lots of talks, keynotes, discussions, and a hackathon. There is a few videos on bit.ly collab W18 -YouTube if you want to watch. I very recommend you watch Chrissy keynote, and many fellows will attend the event. In terms of this year, we're going to have collaborations workshop again. It brings lots of research developers, founders, publishers, and educators that are working on the research software. It will take place, as I mentioned before, between the 1st and 3rd of April at Loughborough University, Loughborough, UK. The website is software.ac.uk/CW19. What we can look for, we're going to have some activities around interoperability, documentation, training, and sustainability. One of our activities that we already announced is Sarah Maddox and Sharif Salah. Both are Google staff, and they're going to be running a 101 tech writing 2 hours workshop. It should be very, very interesting. And the keynotes for collaborations workshop is going to be announced on next week, on the 15th and 16th of January. So, and as I mentioned before, once you are a fellow, you are also a fellows. The benefits are a community report for attending organized events. You can also ask fellows or staffs about suggestions or feedback in your activities, and you continue to influence our activities, for example, reviewing or recruiting new fellows. So these are some of the links if you want to check the website for the program or the online form for applications. We have a frequent asked questions, terms of conditions from last year, our Twitter account and email account that you can use to ask us any questions later if you wish. So without delays, I want to give opportunity for the fellows to share their experience. We're going to start with Becky, and we're going to let her have the mic introduce herself.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Becky.
Okay, I'm going to try and show my slides, which hopefully will continue to work. So all good? I'm gonna.
Yes, Becky.
Okay, cool. Right. So I'm Becky Arnold. I was a fellow last year, and I'm continuing my fellowship until March this year. So I'll just give you a quick overview of who I am. I'm in the final year of my PhD at the University of Sheffield, and I'm doing my PhD in astrophysics. Specifically, I do computer simulations of star clusters, and I'm really interested in how the velocities of the stars in a star-forming region can tell us about how the region evolved, and by looking at how it evolved, how the stars themselves formed. I've also got a really strong interest in like statistics, and if you do a simulation, you've got a whole bunch of stars whizzing around, and if we do observations of the sky, you've got a whole bunch of stars whizzing around, and trying to come up with statistical quantitative methods of comparing these two things to say with confidence, are these two things the same or not, and developing software in order to apply these kinds of things. So that's a quick tour of who I am. So my major interests in terms of software sustainability are mainly in good programming practice. I'm really interested in what is good code, how do we go about writing it, doing these things properly, and ensuring that researchers understand the difference between coding versus coding well. And when I applied for this fellowship, I did not know a huge amount about these topics. I mean, I'm slightly underselling myself there, but it was something that I knew a bit about and I wanted to know a lot about. So the central reason I applied for this fellowship was as an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to get more deep into these subjects and get a good understanding of them. And the central thrust of my application was to use the money to organise sessions to get people that do know a lot about these topics to come to Sheffield and give talks so that the entire research community at the institution could benefit from them, and I would also have the opportunity to learn about these things in more detail. So what have I done with the money? I've arranged a series of talks. I arranged one on how to structure code efficiently so it's maintainable and sustainable. There's one on software engineering in practice that was given by somebody from industry. That was a talk I was really excited to arrange because I think academia and industry can learn a lot from each other. Talk on big data, big science, massive things, particularly in astrophysics, where you're just getting these huge data dumps and space is infinite. Well, probably how to design and engineer good code for research, which is an upcoming talk and is really transferable. I've also had the opportunity to organise a couple of workshops. I organised one on bash scripting and also one on open source software, which is actually taught by Yo, who's one of the fellows who's going to talk later. And I was able to go to conferences. With the SSI, as it was mentioned, I went to the collaborations workshop last year, which was really good. And also I was able to use some of my fellowship funds to go to a conference in my field, which was extremely useful for me to be able to go to, and also gave me the opportunity to talk about good coding practice in the field of astrophysics and have lots of really interesting conversations with people there. So that was very mutually beneficial. So what have I got from doing the fellowship? I've learned a lot. I've definitely been able to strongly improve my knowledge about all the things I wanted to learn about. And also I've gained a great deal of other experience, like learning how do you run a workshop, how do you get seminar speakers to come, which isn't experience I had before and I now have in my back pocket, which is nice. I got to travel, as I mentioned. I was introduced to this new community, which I really, really like. It's an extremely supportive community and it's got that kind of open source spirit of let's work together, let's contribute, let's make something awesome, which I really, really like, especially given the culture of academia can sometimes be a little bit less upbeat upbeat. And it's a community that I hope to spend some or a large part of my career in the future. Another benefit, it looks good on a CV, which given that I'm coming to the end of my PhD and applying for jobs is definitely a nice thing. And it's given me the opportunity to make connections, which again is useful for that, and was also given me the opportunity to talk to lots of interesting people and learn lots of interesting things. Similarly, on that note of meeting interesting people, two of the people that I met in the course of doing this fellowship was the head of the Sheffield Research Software Engineering Group, and also Dr. Kirsty Whitaker, who gave the keynote at the Collaborations Workshop last year. She's at the Alan Turing Institute. And September, October-ish in 2018, she got some funding for a project on developing an open source textbook on best practice for data science. And she wanted a research software engineer from Sheffield to take part and contribute to this project. But nobody at the Sheffield Research Software Engineering Group had enough sort of space to do that. So she and the head of the Sheffield RSE group contacted me and said, basically, do you want to be employed by the Sheffield RSE group for 4 months to just do this project, which is what I'm doing. And it's been a really, really interesting and exciting project to be a part of. And it's also because I'm taking a 4-month leave of absence from my PhD to do this project has given me an extra 4 months before I need to write my thesis, which is something that I'm also quite pleased about. Negatives, it has been a learning curve, a fairly sharp one at times, because I set out to do this to learn about things that I wanted to know more about. And also these things like organising workshops and all the rest of it, and navigating university bureaucracy, which I didn't have experience of before. I'm quite early career, so getting people to come and give talks was not the easiest thing because I don't have contacts. I don't even know who to contact at the start. And it was also quite scary because I don't have a huge amount of confidence in this kind of thing. So you're just sort of sending emails out to the ether saying, hey, person I've never met, will you please do me a favour and come to Sheffield and give this talk? Which was, again, scary at times. It's taken time from my PhD. It would be a lie to say otherwise. And part of that time, as was mentioned, you sort of like have to, after there's a event that's funded by the SSI, you need to write up a report and sort of say, this is what I did and this is what we learned. However, these negatives are kind of also positives in a way, because yes, it was a steep learning curve, but now I know a lot more than I did. I'm early career and I didn't have contacts, which made it hard, but now I do. And I've developed a lot of confidence along the way. It's taken time from my PhD, absolutely, but I'm hopeful that the skills I've learned during the course of doing it will mean that I work more effectively and more efficiently in the future. Like my code itself will be better and sort of like I'll get tangled in fewer knots. So I'm hoping that that time will come back in the long term. And also because I'm early career and applying for jobs, I don't have many publications yet. So it's nice to have blogs and research outputs of forms that I can point to, even if they're somewhat informal, they're in a good place to sort of say, hey, this is a thing I did. So in conclusion, I've enjoyed doing this fellowship. I've got a lot out of it. It's a really great community, and should any of you choose to apply, the best of luck. I will stop sharing my slides now.
Thank you, Becky, for your presentation. It's really good. So our next speaker is Martin. Martin, are you with us? Martin?
Hello, Raniere, I am with you. I just need to get my webcam on and make me bigger. There, how's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. So I don't have any slides, but good afternoon to everyone that's watching. My name is Martin Donnelly. I'm the Research Data Support Manager at the University of Edinburgh, and I'm a mid-career SSI Fellow for 2018. The work that I do currently is different to the work that I did when I applied to become an SSI Fellow, and that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about today, is about change, and really that's something that I'm very interested in. But the work that I do just now is I manage the research data support team in the university, helping our researchers to cope with all aspects of managing live research data, and archiving it towards the end of research. Now, what has that got to do with software? I hear you ask, and it's a good question. The kind of link is in what's becoming known and becoming trendily packaged as open science or open scholarship and open research, and that is the crux of my fellowship application was about taking a holistic approach towards research outputs, not treating them in artificial silos and saying, okay, it's Monday, so I'm doing data, it's Tuesday, I'm doing code, it's Wednesday, I'll do some writing, but acknowledging that these were all parts of a spectrum or parts of a greater whole, and that we ought not to put things into compartments that didn't have nice connections between them. So that's the kind of work that I do. I help researchers with data management plans, help them to connect their data to their publications, to connect software to publications, software to code, to make all of these connections happen. So I'm not a typical SSI fellow in that I don't develop or maintain or even really use very much research code, but I help people who do, and I help people who derive data from research code and help them to understand the importance of having a persistent access to the software that led to research outputs from a scholarly quality, robustness, and sort of transparency point of view. The focus of my fellowship was about software and research reproducibility, and obviously having access to software that produce research results for the long term is important towards reproducibility. And so the angle that I took was about joining things together. The fellowship has been really beneficial for me. It's given me opportunities to investigate the policy side of things, and the kind of culture change side of things, which is where I live, and indeed where I sort of earned a crust for about 10 years before I moved into this job at Edinburgh. At the time that I applied for the fellowship, I worked at the Digital Curation Centre, and I had a national stroke, an increasingly European and international role in culture change, skills development, policy analysis, and things like that around research data. And now that I have a slightly different perspective, that I'm more kind of, I guess more introverted, more introspective. I spend more time thinking about things at Edinburgh than I do thinking about things in Cyprus or Latvia, which is something I used to look at. I've changed my approach to the fellowship from being more outwardly looking and being more about, well, what can we do at Edinburgh that can serve as an exemplar for those interested in linking approaches or achieving synergies. There's another buzzword between approaches to research data, research software, and things like that. So I haven't achieved all of the things that I hoped to, or certainly that I set out to do in my fellowship, but the Institute has been really supportive of the change and understanding, and I'm hopeful that I'll have an opportunity to tweak in the remaining time of my fellowship, or at least of the fellowship funding, because I know that the fellowships continue beyond the year in which we are instituted, to do something useful at Edinburgh and write up some notes or some suggestions for other UK or possibly institutions beyond, looking to adopt these kinds of integrated, holistic, synergistic approaches to research outputs. So there's lots going on this year. You don't need to even open the newspaper, you just need to look at the front page to see that there's a lot going on in terms of Brexit in Europe, and you don't need to know too much about policy to know that filters down into the research environment and how universities manage it, and things like the REF, which is coming up soon, from a more kind of insular British perspective, is happening, and the kind of there are things that I've done as part of my SSI fellowship, like attend policy type events in London, looking at the REF and reproducibility, and trying to encourage politicians to think more about beyond just open access and open data, and to think about things like software and indeed workflows, and indeed peer review, and the rewards and recognition structures and things like that. So just to sort of back up what Becky said and what I expect the other fellows that will speak today will say, is that the SSI is a great community to be part of. The opportunities are really strong. The Slack group and things like that provides really interesting and useful things. Certainly from my perspective as a non-practitioner in software, I've been able to draw on the expertise of my fellow fellows that can very quickly answer questions that would take me as a sort of as a non-specialist quite a long time to get to the bottom of, like what are the issues around archiving apps as opposed to any other kind of software and things like that. And I remember being quite helpful when I asked that question to the Slack group. Just to conclude, it's a great community to be part of. The requirement to write a blog post after each event is really good, because it doesn't just provide an opportunity, but it provides an incentive for reflection, and that's something that in increasingly busy working lives we can put to one side. So that kind of reflective approach and the writing and being able to point to things you've written and things that you've thought through and formulated can be quite a useful string to your bow. So it's certainly been beneficial for me, and I hope that despite me not being, as I said, a traditional or a standard SSI fellow, it's been good on a sort of broader level for the prospects of software sustainability as a part of a broader open science approach. So just thank you very much to the SSI.
Thank you, Martin. Very nice words, and thank you for helping shaping the policy in the UK for researchers. So our next speaker is Vincent. Vincent, can you unmute yourself?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Cool. I've got some slides. Let me go ahead and share those. Can you see those?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So my name's Vince Knight. I'm a mathematician at Cardiff University. I'm a fellow from 2016, so I'm one of those proof of the once a fellow, always a fellow notion that I actually really like about the SSI, as I'll talk about. So in terms of my career, when I applied for the fellowship, I was a lecturer. I'm now a senior lecturer, and one of the highlights of the fellowship for me is actually I used the fact that I was a fellow of the SSI in my promotion portfolio. So a bit about myself. In research, I'm one of the core developers of a research library called Axelrod that does game theory. I do a lot of stochastic modeling. And at the time of my fellowship application, I sat on the Operational Research Society Grand Council. I teach a lot of software. I teach Python to all our first-year mathematicians. And I do a lot of outreach. So I've organized PyCons in Namibia. I'm part of the organizing committee of the UK PyCon. I help run the local Python user group, PyDiff, and do various outreach. And fundamentally, everything I do is somewhat underpinned by software, which is one of the reasons for wanting to apply for the fellowship in the first place. And in particular, the kind of starting to realize that there is more than just writing code. There's writing code well and leading on to reproducibility. And that's brought me into all sorts of interests around culture change, which I think is the fundamental puzzle piece here. In terms of why I applied is about my own development. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to understand what it was I didn't know. So connecting with the community, recognition, having that SSI fellow brand, so to speak, is something that has proved to be extremely worthwhile. As I mentioned before, it was part of my promotion portfolio, but I last year was invited to speak at Google SciFu, and I believe being a fellow of the SSI is a reason for that. I spoke at the Google HQ about research software, sustainability and reproducibility in research. I probably wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have this level of recognition that the fellowship gives. And people connecting to this large network of people who have that interest of how and why and when to use software in the correct way. But what's also fantastic about the fellowship is that I'm not just speaking to people from within my field. In fact, I'm often speaking to people from very, very different fields for whom we face very similar and very different challenges. In terms of the commitment that comes with being a fellow, it's not really a commitment, if I'm completely honest. That's a photo from the Collabs workshop in 2016. Let me correct myself a little bit. When I say it's not a commitment, it is, but it doesn't feel like one. These are all things that, because of my interest in research and software and research, are things I'd like to do anyway. So this is a photo from the 2016 Collab workshop that took place in Edinburgh. So this was the one that I had to go to, so to speak, as a result of my fellowship. Following that one, I attended the one that took place in Leeds the year after, and then the year after that, it was really great to host the workshop at Cardiff, and that's something that 2 or 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years prior, would have not even felt possible. But as a result of my fellowship, we've got growing recognition of best practice within our school, within our university. In fact, 2 of my PhD students are now fellows of the Institute, and so we had a good local team to help run the event here in Cardiff. The benefits, they kind of follow on from the commitments, to be honest. The commitments are a benefit as well. But as someone's also mentioned, the helpfulness of the Slack group. You can see one there. That's a screenshot of a question I asked on one of my projects. We were talking about a best place to put some data, and I immediately had access to a huge amount of expertise that could answer that question. But the benefits are not just Slack. As I mentioned before, the reputation and I think the recognition is something that really stands out for me. So we've been running now for the past, we just ran the second one. We run a yearly course for new PhD students here in the School of Mathematics, and I would suggest that that's a benefit of the fellowship, because I can speak about wanting to run such a thing with some level of backing, which is given by the fellowship. And so all in all, I think I just really encourage people to apply and engage with the Institute. It's an invaluable resource, and it really, I continue to be delighted to be a fellow of the SSI, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Vincent, for your presentation, and again for hosting Collaborations Workshop last year. It was a great time.
Yes, it was a pleasure.
So our next speaker is Danny. Danny, with us.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. A lot of the things I'm going to say sort of have been echoed by the other speakers today. I apologize. I was meant to send my son into nursery today, but he was unwell, so I have him sat right next to me, causing a bit of a distraction. Just a little bit about myself. I'm Danny. I'm an anesthetist, so a medical doctor that puts patients off to sleep and looks after them whilst they're undergoing their surgery, and afterwards looks after them in the intensive care unit. I received the fellowship in 2017, which was the second year of my PhD. After having worked as a medical doctor for about 8 years, decided to return to academia to work on research surrounding the sort of delivery of healthcare services and intensive care services in the UK. Part of the reason why I decided to apply for the fellowship was I wanted to gain a better understanding about reproducible research within the medical sciences, which sometimes it is not very widespread and not heard about as much as other more hardcore STEM subjects like mathematics or physics or biochemistry. A lot of the crisis that we face within the medical field at the moment is as research is conducted, findings aren't replicated in future work, and that has sort of real repercussions to direct patient care. And I felt that that was quite a bit of an issue. And so I felt that a lot of the things that we do within medical research rely upon good software and good coding practices. So I thought I needed to enrich myself in this area of knowledge. And most of my work is based in the Royal College of Anaesthetists, which is the governing body for anesthesia in the UK, and it's quite influential in directing training and sort of professional standards in terms of safety for delivery of anesthesia care to patients. And the fellowship has given me a really good opportunity to bring principles which are being applied outside in other fields into anesthesia research, and then try and enrich the sort of development of an anesthetist going forward into the future to prepare for a workforce that will increasingly become sort of involved with automated and machine learning type principles, which if we don't have the skills within our community, we won't necessarily be able to fully utilize in a safe manner. So the sort of things that I've done so far with the fellowship, I came in with the intention of starting an R package, because a lot of the research tools that I use are in the R computing language, so that the work I do doesn't have to be replicated. Replicate is not the right word. I've constantly reinvent the wheel every time we want to run the same type of analysis with a different data set within our group. So I took about £500 of the £3,000 to send myself on our package development course, which was very, very useful. And we've started creating a little R package within our group with some functions to calculate risk data for patients. Going forward, we hope to continue developing on that R package to also incorporate anonymized patient data and organizational data of hospitals that are delivering anesthesia care within the UK. So one of the big research projects that I did was involved 250 hospitals across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, and some hospitals in Australia and New Zealand, totaling about 260 hospitals in total. And we've got data from about 26,000 patients. Obviously, we can't share directly identifiable patient information, but we hoped to be able to share anonymized data set from within the data that we've collected, alongside tools that we've developed during the course of the research, so that other people can make use of this data that's been collected and try and encourage data reuse and reduce wastage in research data. Other things that I've done so far with the fellowship, I've helped teach at a sort of programming introductory course for geographers at the Royal Society of Geography, which was run by another one of the fellows in my cohort, Thomas Etherington. I've been very involved with the Data Science for Doctors course that Steve Harris started. He initially ran it once with the backing of the Institute, and we've managed to rerun it 5 more times, making it now is a twice yearly course that gets run. It's self-sustaining in terms of the financial cost for running the course. and we are training 20 to 40 new clinician, 20 to 40 clinicians a year who previously have had no experience with programming, to at least start using basic programming and scripting skills to work with data that they might be collecting in their own institutions across the NHS to try and improve the services that they deliver. And going forward into the future, I hope that we'll maintain the sort of relationships that we've built. I've certainly learned a lot of sort of hardcore skills, and some of the softer skills I've picked up in terms of trying to get a large group of people network together and collaborating to work towards a common goal, which I've learned a lot from the other fellows within the Institute, and from the actual community engagement that the Institute itself does. It's been a very great opportunity, and I highly encourage anyone who's even at different stages of their research software coding experience to apply. When I started out, I had very little coding experience. I would have classed myself more as a clinician, but now I'm starting to move across the spectrum into sort of applying some research software engineering principles into my day-to-day research work.
That's out then, Danny, from you? Or...
Yeah, that's all I have to say, and I would highly encourage anyone to apply. Thank you very much.
It's great to see you. Our next speaker is Yo. Yo, are you with us?
I think so. Can you see me all right?
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay. Oh, actually, I've just pressed the wrong button, haven't I? There we go. That's better. Okay. Right. I'll pull up my notes. My name is Yo. I am a research software engineer at the University of Cambridge in the Department of Genetics. I've been here around 3 years, and I was a fellow for the 2018 round. And so I'll tell you a bit about the project that I was thinking of why I applied for the SSI. It's basically I have painful love for open source software. And somewhere along the line, I noticed that people don't always bother to make their research software open source. And I couldn't quite understand it because there's a big push for reproducible software out there. And how can you reproduce anything if you don't have the code involved? And more importantly, perhaps, is that if your research code is wrong, then actually all of the research that it outputs is also going to be wrong. And I'd been working on this project for a few months, I think, before I actually applied for the fellowship. And one of the things that the fellowship gave me as a benefit was actually the ability to then dedicate more time and money to my project. So previously, I'd even been accepted into conferences with this project, but because I didn't have enough money to fly to the conference, I couldn't go. So if you have any burning ideas that are to do with software sustainability in some way and you get the fellowship, that can really enable you to do what you've been dreaming to do. And so it allows you to do a lot of different things if you end up getting the fellowship. So it could, whether it's catering for the event or whether it's thank you awards for hackathons or paying for conference posters and travels, leaflets, things like that. But it can really, really make a difference. I mean, if you're doing a project, like an open source project on your own, and you want to do that same thing, like you want to even thank you stickers, for example, £50 out of your own pocket is really, really difficult, but out of a £3,000 fund, it's actually not that difficult to spend. So it makes life a lot easier for your projects. And so another benefit that I found that was really, really important, I think people have said this before, but I feel it so strongly. I think if the only thing that the fellowship gave you was the collaborations workshop, then it would still absolutely be worth it. So one of the things that I had planned was to create a manifesto talking about the importance of open source code and science as part of my project. And so attending the collaborations workshop on the hack day, actually managed to get a group of people together, and then we managed to author a manifesto stating the importance of open source code and research software, and the fact that people deserve to get credit for it as well. So not just papers. For example, we should need to recognize that code is a research output and should be examined and given credit for. So I was really, really happy with the outputs of the collaborations workshop. And also I met a lot of people that I think was really, really special for me. So I was just looking through the fellows list actually for 2018 and realizing how many of the people on that list I actually now would just consider friends, and I bump into at other conferences as well. So it's amazing networking as much as anything else. Let's switch back to my notes. Okay, yeah, so I thought I had a few tips for application as well if you're thinking of applying. So I'm assuming it's the video format again. I'm sure Raniere will correct me if I'm wrong about that. But if you're doing a few minutes of video, that can seem a bit daunting, but it's not as scary as you think, so long as you tackle it carefully. So sit down and just write some bullet points of roughly what you want to say. And then just talk about it a little bit, record yourself, if you listen to yourself, it's not as scary as people think, honest. I know everyone says they hate hearing their own voice, but it's not that bad. But eventually you'll get an idea of roughly what your timing is like. And another thing that I think is a nice idea is to consider paying for a month of professional video software. So when I made my video for the application, I used a software called Movely. And unfortunately, it's gone more expensive. When I used it, it made some really nice little slick animations for my application video without having to know how to do any fancy things. So like, you could do like the hand drawing out text and stuff without having to put too much effort in it. And that was $6 last year. And I just looked before I joined the call, and now it's actually 25, which is not quite so affordable, but still, I did enjoy it a lot. And I thought it made the video look like a much slicker quality. So if 25 isn't too painful, it's definitely something to consider. Once you do get it submitted, one other thing is definitely make sure to prepare the video early. So I think that I was about this close to midnight on the application deadline, but videos take a long time to render. And the stress of waiting for that video to render and hoping it finishes before midnight is not worth it. Make sure you do it early. Also, the shortlisting I thought was actually something that was interestingly valuable. So the online selection day, we ended up doing a lot of group activities. And despite the fact that it was basically a job interview that took all day, it was actually really lots of fun. So much like the collaborations workshop, you end up meeting a lot of up and coming people who are really interested in software in academia. And so I think afterwards, a lot of us ended up creating a mailing list just because we didn't want to lose contact with each other, whether or not we ended up being successful as fellows later on. So it's the first time I think I've had something that you'd class as an interview, but actually I would say I would have just done it just for the heck of it because it was that much fun. And then once you get in, assuming if you do get in as a fellow, some other tips that I had if I was looking through my notes was to try and make a budget early on. So £3,000, you think, well, that's a lot of money, but still I can imagine ways to spend it. Spending money isn't going to be a problem. But if you make a budget early on, then you can actually be realistic about what you're going to spend. And then also maybe even have fallbacks. So if something doesn't happen for some reason, then you can think, well, I'll do the third item on my list or so on. Just a nice way so that you don't end up running out too early or getting towards the end with not enough money spent. And I'd also just say, if you can do it at all, make sure you attend all of the events that you're available to. I think I've extolled the virtues of the collaborations workshop earlier. But another thing that I actually really found as a benefit from the collaborations workshop was that after writing the manifesto that I mentioned earlier for my project, I ended up with 2 talks for that manifesto and a poster just out of the outputs of that one single hack day. So there are a lot of career benefits that you can find. A few other career benefits that I think I personally found were that it really opens up opportunity because it increases your profile. So since I became a fellow, I have started editing for the Journal of Open Source Software and also for the Open Source Toolkit channel on PLOS. So that gives me the chance to help highlight open source research software that I think is of high quality. Along with actually Nicoletta, who is also a fellow and I believe student of Vince, who spoke earlier, is that right? Yes. Yeah, so there's a lot of great opportunities. And I think one of the biggest opportunities for me, something that's really, really exciting. So I work as a research software engineer at university at the minute. I don't have a doctoral degree, But officially, as of a couple of weeks ago, I have started an EngD, which I say is like a PhD, but it starts with Eng. So I am now basically realizing one of my dreams, and my supervisor is actually another fellow who I met at the collaborations workshop. So it's absolutely, I would say it's a life-changing opportunity, and you should really make the most of it, and it's definitely worth going for. And I think that's everything I had to say.
Thank you for all your sharing. I want to thank you, all the fellows that joined us today. So big thanks for Becky, Martin, Vincent, Danny, and Yo. I know that Vincent dropped from this call. He had to go for another meeting. So continuing with this launch webinar, we get to the point to answer questions. If you're watching this, we can ask your questions on the live chat. And if Mario doesn't answer your questions on the chat, I'm going to answer on this launch webinar. So I know there was a few questions during the fellows presentation. So I'm going to cover them, and then I'm going to cover any other questions on the chat. So the first one is from Rachel. So Rachel asked about the £3,000 and the events that is required to attend. So the £3,000 doesn't include the cost of the required event. So the collaborations workshop 2019 and 2020 and the fellows inaugural, it's paid outside of the 3,000K, and that's outside as well the all fellows meeting when you organize that one, if you decide to attend. So just to recollect, the £3,000, it's just for events that you want to attend, but they are not required. We have another question from Francis. So Francis asks, can you collaborate with past non-fellows in the running of a workshop? Yes, you can. You just need to, when you decide to collaborate, just need to tell us what is the role of you and the other people that you're collaborating. We know that lots of people had collaborated in the past. So as Becky was mentioned, Becky and Yo collaborated for a workshop in Sheffield in December, if I'm recollect correctly, and that was not a problem. We are happy to collaborate with anyone, as long as the workshop's related with software or connects with software somehow. Friends also ask about spending some of the £3,000 on conference travel with the field that you work on. And Francis asked, does this kind of travel have to include a SI element? And the answer is yes. You need to be related with software, a software that you develop, software that you use, but that's very minimum requirement. If you're presenting a paper, for example, and you use a software that you want to publish, that's yes for us. So you probably can use the £3,000 to attend the conference. So someone asked about the success rate for the last couple of calls. I imagine the calls is for fellows. I prefer not to disclose that one, but it's a good number as any other kind of fellowship application. It's not very high, but it's a good number of people that show interesting. Mark asked, can you talk a little bit about what type of things happen on the online selection day? Yes, so it's, as Yo was saying, it's a little bit of job interview. We have lots of discussions with the candidates, but it's a group discussion with everyone. And it gives opportunity for us to see how people interact in a group. So that's what we're looking on the online selection day, if that's reply your question, Mark. So something that I need to mention is Francis was asking a question about collaborations with other people, and we're looking for this community building kind of proposals. So we're looking for people that are interested or happy to collaborate with other people. So on the applications form, there is one of the questions is if you're considering or you're planning to collaborate with someone, and who are that person. That can be some fellows or other people. So I'm waiting if someone that's watching this large webinar to have more questions on the chat. At the moment, I believe I reply all the questions on the chat. So until I wait for people to ask more questions, Yo mentioned that about her experience recording the video, and she said that it was scaring a little bit. But I believe that her video is one among the other ones that fellows share on YouTube that you post, and there is a link on our description page of the fellowship program. So you are happy to watch some of the applications. So I have another question from Diego. Diego asks, if organizing a workshop is part of the planning activities, is there any restrictions on who can attend? If I'm reading your question correctly, there is no restrictions of people that can attend the workshop. Right. If you can clarify a little bit your question on the chat, would be great, Diego. But your event can be free if you want to, or you can charge a little bit for people to actually show up. What it means, reduce the numbers of non-show up of the event. But it's up to you what kind of workshop are you considering organize. Please let me know if you need more explanations, Diego. I have another question. Someone asked, what would happen if you were selected as a fellow, but during 2019 or 2020, you had to leave the UK, Brexit, make leaves complicated? Would you stop being a fellow? No, we have a couple of fellows that had to move out of the UK. We still list them as a fellow. It gets a little bit more complicated if you organize a workshop that you would include on your plans, but we prefer to have that discussion with you if that's your case after you've been selected as a fellow. I have a question from Sorrel Harriet. How much emphasis do you place on the social media blogging requirement? Is networking and collaborations by other means value equally? Yes, there is. You don't need to put a lot of emphasis on social media and blogging. You don't need to have thousands of followers on social media. We're really looking more for networking and collaborations in person as well. So that's what we're looking on the selection day, as I mentioned before. On the application form, we ask for a sample of your writing, but that's just to give us an example of what kind of things do you like to write, or how do you like to write. It can be a blog post, or it can be a scientific article, or some other kind of piece of document. We treat them equally. There's no extra points if it's a paper on Nature or on PLOS or a blog post. We're looking for how do you talk about software. So we're probably going to look on different things if it's a blog post or if it's a articles in one of the journals. I hope that I had answered your question, Sorrel. So giving time for people to type more questions if there's more questions. So we're just waiting a few more minutes to see if people have more questions on the YouTube chat. You don't feel comfortable having a question publicly, you can always email that question to us or tweet that to us as well. We're going to do our best to reply quickly all the messages. So I'm not getting any new messages on the YouTube chat, so I'm just going to continue and close this launch webinar. So I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone that's attending this fellow. We had a good numbers of people watching this today. I want to give a special thanks to the fellows, to Becky, Martin, Vincent, Danny, and Yo for the presentations and the time to join us today. I want to thank you, Mario and Selena, that's helping today with the launch webinar on the backstage, and other staff of the Institute that help with the work. I want to thank our funders, the UK Engineering Physics Science Research Council, and DBSRC and ISRC. That's two of the other funders for the Software System Institute. So as a reminder, the slides is going to be available on the Institute website very soon. And this video is also going to be available on YouTube right after. So there is some less information. If you're applying for the fellowship, it's a little bit of hard for us to pay for hardware or staff time for developing software. If you're looking for staff time, open calls is the way to go for you. And if you have any further questions, you can always email us. So without delay, I would like to thank everyone again and wish you a good weekend and a very time application. Good luck for everyone, and I hope to see you applications very soon. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.